Welcome to PMBD, where we talk all things film, superheroes, capes, critics, box office, everything. Today we're joined by student journalist Lazaro Chavez to help us discuss why Superman 2025 wasn't that big of a hit. It was a critical hit, but it didn't exceed box office expectations. Lazaro, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me on air.
So talk to me about Superman 2025. First thing I wanted to know, did you like the movie?
I certainly love the movie. I think there was an appetite for it, obviously, given the fact that the last 10 years there haven't been a Superman movie. Actually, 12 years, because remember, the last one that came out was the Zack Snyder-directed Man of Steel. This came out in 2013, so that's been 12 years since Superman had his own solo movie. And so it's the first time a lot of audiences are also going to get to know him on the big screen. And it was just a lot of expectations were there, and I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I think it did a lot of good to the damage that was done by the last interpretation.
Okay, so then what's this disconnect? What's this disconnect between like the box office numbers and the critical reception?
I think the disconnect just simply comes from the fact that people may just simply be fatigued. You know, Marvel did a great job of creating this sort of manufactured sort of way of making movies where we get a character, put him through the same arc that was in Iron Man, for example, going through these different plots, you know, doing self-discovery stories, kind of moving past trauma, doing all this stuff, and then becoming, you know, the big superhero thing, and then the whole interconnected universe sort of idea. That was something Marvel really excelled at, and it dominated the 2010s. What happens, you know, after, you know, you have a world pandemic, people are seeing a super saturation of the content. Remember, 2021, Marvel released, what was it? I think it was 4 movies and like 5 TV shows, you know, so you had 11 pieces of content that you had to watch just to understand why Spider-Man is running around with Doctor Strange at the end of 2021.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I was doing homework. And I like those movies, but after a while I just kind of tapped out.
Exactly, and that's what, you know, casual audiences are going to feel. You know, they're not going to want to have to watch 10 movies or more. You know, now there's more. You know, back then there was only 10 movies you needed to watch to understand, you know, Avengers 2, for example. Now you have to not only watch the 30-plus films and shows of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you now also have to watch the old X-Men movies from the 2000s. You have to watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, the Mark Webb, Andrew Garfield films, the Tom Hardy Venom movies. You now have to watch all of these movies in order to kind of understand the next Avengers movie that's coming out, which is Avengers Doomsday. You have to understand why there's a multiverse, and that kind of just, I think that concept alone throws casual audiences off completely, because it's like, okay, now why is this character who we saw die in the last movie, now he's alive? Why is this character who was played by this person now in the same movie as the person who plays the same character now? So I think that's part of that, is that fatigue of the concept, and unfortunately Superman had to fall victim to that in the box office.
Like, you think he's paying for it? Like that movie paid for this?
For the fatigue, absolutely.
Is it a bad movie fatigue, or is it like superhero fatigue?
I would say superhero fatigue. Again, this is a concept that, you know, I mean, as a fan of these movies and a fan of the comics and a fan of the characters as a whole, you know, I would love to see them thrive. I would love to see that movie had made $500 million at the box office, or even more. But it couldn't. Because why? Because, again, you had 10-plus years of these movies coming out every summer. They were dominating the box office. They were dominating critics. They were dominating people's living rooms, you know, even when it came out digitally or in Blu-ray or whatever the case. It's a dominating thing, and people are just, I guess, tired of seeing it. At least casual audiences are.
One thing that I also understand, because you mentioned 500 million, like you wish it could have been 500 million. This movie had a big budget. All these superhero movies have huge budgets. Like, these budgets are bigger than my house. I feel like it's kind of hard to make your money back when you have these high expectations. So it always is going to seem like a flop when you have a $100, $200 million budget and you have to make twice that to make your money back, to break even. I mean, is that a factor?
It could be, but I think it's more so not only the people behind it, but also the way in which audiences are receiving these movies. For example, a good example of this is Transformers 1. I think it was a $200 million movie, made $98 million in the box office.
That's horrible.
The film was just not marketed right. There was no marketing for it. I mean, people didn't even know this movie was coming out, and audiences, not only audiences that were casual, that, you know, didn't just know who the Transformers were, they didn't really care, because not only that, you also had 5 other movies whose reputation was, you know, juvenile humor, a robot humping Megan Fox, underneath the enemy scrotum. You know, this was the reputation Transformers had since 2007.
Mm-hmm.
have in the same summer, you have either I believe what was it called, The Big Robot, the one that was with Lupita Nyong'o, that won an Oscar.
Was it?
Yes, it did win an Oscar. Now you had that option of that movie, nice kid-friendly movie, or you had the option of an animated Transformers movie where you run the risk of your kid watching Devastator's, what, swinging back and forth. I think I'm taking my kid to the Lupita Nyong'o movie, So it has to do with how these movies are marketed and the reputation in which this genre has as a whole.
You think Superman, like superhero movies, have a bad genre?
I think right now they are. It's been fatigued. People don't take it seriously. At least casual audiences don't take it as serious as someone like me who's into the comics, into these characters, who grew up on them and who loves them and wants to see these movies where, I would love to see the classic roster of the Justice League on the big screen. I would love to see Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Aquaman all come together on the big screen. But does the casual audience go, or the person who's like, I just spent 40 hours this week working, flipping burgers, doing fries, whatever the case is, do I want to have to spend the money I made in those 40 hours? Am I going to spend it on this movie, or am I going to spend it on something else? And so you have to meet the audience's kind of demand. And unfortunately, Superman, it is a good movie. It did great in what it needed to do in order to fix the reputation of the character of Superman, but it just didn't meet the casual audience's needs.
Okay, so what do you think the future is for superheroes? Do you think that there is a future? Like, does this genre, is it like the Western, it's gone? Or is there going to be more?
Well, I wouldn't say it's like the Western, and even then Westerns are I've seen a couple Westerns in the last decade where they've been really good. And that's making kind of a comeback. The samurai films are making a comeback. I believe it's Ethan Hawke is making a samurai movie, and I think that's supposed to come out in like 2 years. It's a silent film and everything. It's gonna be a big deal. I don't think the superheroes are gonna go the way of the cowboy. They're not going the way of the outlaw. They're not leaving. I think superhero movies, these are movies that have turned people into superstars. All right, Chris Evans wouldn't be Chris Evans without playing Captain America. Chris Hemsworth sure as hell wouldn't be Chris Hemsworth without Thor.
Right. No.
And then, of course, obviously, Robert Downey Jr. having one of the greatest Hollywood comeback stories wouldn't be possible.
I think he did all this.
Oh, certainly. I mean, and we're seeing it. Marvel's right now with their back against the wall.
They have to bring him back.
That's why they brought him back as Doctor Doom of all characters, which has nothing to do. There's obviously maybe they do it as a marketing ploy. It depends on. I think the future of the superhero genre lies at the hands of Avengers Doomsday, lies at the hands of the Russo brothers, lies at the hands of Robert Downey Jr. and Marvel Studios. If that film performs terribly both at the box office and critically, we may see a very grim future for superhero movies.
That makes me think, because like Superman is the man. He's Superman. Like, that's everybody. Even people who don't like superhero movies like Superman, or maybe they know him. And there was like this big conversation about the movie Superman where like this has to save the genre. Like, if this movie fails, superhero movies are cooked. I feel like they said that about a few movies now. Do you think like Superman can bring this back? I know he's getting a sequel. Do you think that a sequel of Superman could save superhero movies?
Maybe. It depends on what they do with that sequel.
What do you want to do with it?
I could see a movie where, well, first off, you have to pick up where Superman left off, right? We have Lex Luthor in jail now. We have the Justice Gang, which I'm sure at some point is going to end up becoming the Justice Society, not the Justice Gang. For sure, they're going to end up being either the Justice Society or what's the
League,
or Justice League International. That's the other team. I don't see Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, or Mr. Terrific being the core founding members of the Justice League.
No, but they'll probably be there.
You can't do it without Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. But we could see more of that mythos that Superman hints at. We had Mr. Terrific in a very big supporting role. Maybe we have him come back. Maybe we introduce the Hawkman of this universe. Probably bring him in. Tie more connections to the bigger DC universe. It's not just those characters. You can do, for example, tease Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Show us Bruce Wayne. Maybe have him be at a function of some kind or be on TV like they did with the Peacemaker cameo in the show. This is
kind of like the Marvel where you kind of like sneak them in.
You have to do it in bits. It's not like how DC did it. Almost 10 years ago, where they're like, let's just shoehorn everybody into a movie. We do Justice League first, and from there, everybody spins off.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. And obviously, I think important is to keep hammering at what they did with the character of Superman. Focus on his humanity. Keep focusing on the good aspect of what made Superman, which is the man part. It's not just it's not the guy. Almost any superhero nowadays, they have super strength, they have super speed, run, they can fly, they have laser eyes. Most superheroes have that. But what makes Superman, his power is the fact that he, despite being an alien who has the powers of a god, is a man at the end of the day, raised by humble parents in the middle of Kansas, with good morals, good values, and said, I have to do something. He made the choice. He's not going to be Omni-Man or Homelander. He made the choice to be a good guy. And that's the thing that they hit well, and they need to do it again. And a good villain that I think could challenge that is the one we're being teased about, which is, of course, Brainiac. I think Brainiac would be very good. It'll also bring back some stuff about Krypton, because obviously we know that the Crystal City... that's
Kandor?
Kandor, there you go, Kandor, he's been in possession of that in the comics. That's something they could bring around to be like, tie him more to his Kryptonian heritage. They also have to... The mistake that I think that they made was making Jor-El and his mother...
Villains.
Just making them straight up villains. I feel like they're gonna do something else with that in the third movie. My theory is that Jor-El in the video is actually General Zod, but again, that can be debated more another time. But these are the things that they really need to hit the mark on. Is you gotta have a good villain. So make Brainiac the main villain, but Lex Luthor should be there as well. But don't make him as he's like this conniving. He's smart. He's a very smart guy. I mean, nobody is pulling portals out of there. And putting them into different places across the world. But he's not. He comes off almost cartoony in the way that he hates Superman.
Right.
So let's change that. Let's make him more down to his core of the intellectual guy. I want to see this Lex Luthor end up being elected president in this universe at some point. I want to see how they do that story.
You said cartoony, and that makes me think. There was a gripe that I had with this movie, and I see a sentiment kind of shared around, like general audiences, and it's that this movie's a roller coaster. And not a cool roller coaster. I mean, it is. I did like the movie. I'm a big fan of Superman, but I'm like, what is happening in this movie? I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on. For better and for worse, it feels like a comic book. Not all comic books are very good, in my opinion. And I think, like, when I talk to the average person who saw this movie, they don't know what Metamorpho is or Mr. Terrific. They're just seeing this go down, and why is Superman stuck in a black hole with like a baby alien? I kind of hope that the sequel dials back on all of that stuff.
That could work as well. Again, you also have to take into account that I think that might have also been part of that box office, not being so good, the reports coming back in, is because they maybe went too comic booky. I think you need to strike a balance. And also, remember, this film is tasked with a very heavy burden of setting up a cinematic universe, which the cinematic universe concept, of course, started by Marvel, but it was less, like with Iron Man. Yeah, they had the rights to like 5 B-list characters, but they didn't set them all up in one movie. They didn't set these concepts in one movie. It was, okay, this is Tony Stark's story. This is him. He comes out of the cave, decides he's not going to sell weapons anymore. Becomes Iron Man. His mentor, a guy, father's right hand, betrays him, tries to sell the weapons, ends up taking the one thing that was keeping him alive, and ends up making the armor, being a mirror image almost of Tony. So that story, if this movie also, the next Superman, focuses narrowing it on Superman's story. Now you've already kicked off the platform with the cinematic universe. Now let's see the more isolated side of it. Let's keep things to Metropolis. I would love to see, obviously, like Hawkman maybe come in, maybe another Green Lantern show up. Maybe, obviously after the Lantern series, this would be coming out, you can have Jon Stewart come in, kind of dap up Superman or whatever.
Yeah.
Or Hal Jordan come in, and
I wish.
God knows what they'll do with that. But, you can make it smaller. Still have those characters, which I would love to see come in, still have that supporting cast, but also narrow that focus to Superman, Lois, the Daily Bugle, or the Daily Planet.
Nice.
Why do I always confuse the two? Daily Planet, that was something I very complained about in that movie, was the fact that as a journalist, the fact that the journalist characters kind of have like about this much screen time.
Yeah.
And this Lois interpretation was pretty good too. So it's like, how is it that we're like one of the best versions of Lois, since she has like a fraction of screen time that she should normally have?
I feel like she was in a lot of the movie.
I feel like she was in less of the movie.
I feel like she was in a lot of the movie. I just don't think she did anything.
That might be why I feel like she wasn't in so much of the movie.
Yeah, she was just kind of there.
That might just be why.
That's all we have for today. Thank you again, Lazaro, for joining us and having this very insightful conversation.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right. I hope to see you again.